And we're live.
Right, you are.
Hello, and thank you everybody for joining this discussion. We would start by introducing yourself for 1.5 minutes or so, roughly. The floor is yours. We would start with Chris. Chris, the floor is yours. Sorry for the drink.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Chris Keating. I've been a Wikipedian since 2004. I served for a while as chair and as trustee of Wikimedia UK, and I think that's given me some really good experience that will make me an effective WMF board member. When I took over as chair in 2012, there was essentially a governance crisis going on, which I was able to step into, commission an external governance review, sort out those issues, and within a year move us being in a crisis to being one of the best governed organisations in the Wikimedia movement. So that was then. What's that got to do with now? WMF is going to have some challenges over the next few years. We don't know what they're going to be. We don't know what the future holds. But since I've steered one Wikimedia ship through a storm, I think I'd be well placed to help the WMF overcome its next challenges, whatever they are. I've worked a lot in volunteer movements outside of the Wikimedia movement. I think I have a deep understanding of how the relationship between the foundation and the various communities can work, and I think I'll be in a good position to shape the WMF board to keep it focused on supporting volunteers and on sustaining a positive relationship between the WMF and the communities.
Thank you. Milish, you up next. Sorry, Chris. Milish, you next.
Okay, so I'm Milish Amčić. I'm a Wikimedian since 2003. In 2004, I built the community around Wikipedia in Serbian language and other Wikimedia projects in Serbia. From 2005, we've organized Wikimedia Serbia as the fifth chapter of the Wikimedia movement. So I was working on chapter issues for I don't know 2 years. Then again between 2009 and 2012, when we built we created the office and got paid staff. But for the most of the time, for the most of my Wikimedian time, I was actually involved in quite different things. I've been a member since 2008. I was steward from 2007 to 2013. I was a member of a couple of other committees, committee, nominating committee, and so on. I'm not a stone. Those are the committees. That I was doing various things on the projects in, and working a lot of things like with requirements for conversion engine for or writing some bots and so on and so on. As a steward and the member of language committee and then affiliations committee, I learned our movement. I was introduced to our movement in depth, a number of quite complex issues. The last thing, let's say the last, but I mean, it is not. It's not possible. It is explain everything, but the last thing which I did is initiated is AfroCrowd, which is basically the initiative led now by Alice Baker, and with the aim to incorporate Black Americans into the Wikimedia movement. But as my last information is that actually the initiative is actually is growing up, and it will soon become the initiative to incorporate actually African diaspora media movement. I would finish with that.
Thank you, Miloš. Dariusz, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Dariusz Mirnek. I'm a professor of management from Poland, and I think there are 5 reasons why I'm good a candidate for the board. First of all, I have experience from many different roles in the movement. I've been an admin, a bureaucrat, a Czech user. It gave me insight into how my home community. But also I have experience from the roles of steward and Czech user, so I was able to understand the nature of certain threats to our content. In my role of an ombudsman, it made me realize how even very high functionaries fail to understand some of our privacy policies. In my role of the FDC member and actually an elected chair for 3 terms, I understood how various of our affiliates operate. I also have experience of on the board. The 2 years on the board helped as well. But a second thing that I think is important for a board member that I bring is the ability to resist pressure. I speak up against the others if I need to. I stand up for the values. The Super Protect wouldn't happen if people stood up against it. But I'm also able to collaborate. I believe that just being a lone wolf doesn't work. On the board, it's important to be able to cooperate with the others even if we do not agree. I've proven this during our leadership prizes. The 4th thing is, I think, bringing real expertise. Wikimedia is #1 knowledge source on the internet with top traffic. We need world-class experts on the board. Ideally, in my view, actually, all the board members should be both deeply knowledgeable about our community and experts. And we direly need experts from knowledge industries, such as universities or libraries. I'm the only full professor among the candidates. I have strong research and publication record from top universities, such as Harvard, MIT, or Berkeley. I also professionally specialize in knowledge-intensive organizations. And finally, I also bring real experience from being a board member of an organization of this size. While the experience of being the WMF board member helps, I think it's even more valuable to bring experience from other NGOs. I've been on the board of the Copernicus Science Center, one of the largest science centers in this region of Europe, with more than 1 million visitors per year for over 5 years. I've consulted them on strategy development. I've also been hired as a strategy consultant for NGOs before. So I think I bring real experience and expertise to the table.
Thank you, Dariusz. Buck James, you next.
Great, thank you. So I'm James Heilman. I'm an emergency physician in Wikipedia. I've been an active Wikipedian since 2008. I edit Wikipedia more or less every day. I've made more than 200,000 human-made edits over the last 10 years. I've been involved in many aspects of the movement. My core activity has been editing Wikipedia and involvement with the community. But I've also, I was also one of the founding members of Wikimedia Canada. I was one of the founding members of Wiki Project Meg Foundation, one of our user groups that has more than a couple hundred members now. Other aspects of my work have included collaboration with a lot of outside organizations. I began the efforts at UCSF that have resulted in a medical elective being offered there to medical students that's now in its 8th rotation. I've worked with the World Health Organization to improve Wikipedia's medical content, and my efforts there have resulted in did result in a Wikipedian residence at that institution. One of my favorite collaborations has been with the organization Translators Without Borders. That has resulted in the translation of more than 6 million words of text into some of 100 different languages. With respect to other academic work, I have taken a Wikipedia article through the formal peer review process and had it published in the academic press. I think, you know, building off Dariush's content, one of the important things we need to do as a movement is we need to improve the opinion of Wikipedia among academics. And I think, you know, to do that, we need to more involve academia in Wikipedia. With respect to further efforts on the board, I think one of the key aspects of a board member is, you know, we need board members who are willing to make the board accountable to the movement as a whole. One of the issues we face is, or that we have faced over the last couple of years is, you know, the board is more or less self-perpetuating. You know, while we're running in this election, it's not a true election. You know, one of the things I would like to see is for it to become a true election. Another thing that's key is, you know, we need to involve our wider movement in the Wikimedia Foundation. And to do this, you know, the Wikimedia Foundation needs a great deal of transparency. Over the last couple of years, I've been a champion for transparency within our movement. You know, during the difficulties we experienced 18 months ago, I led, you know, many of the efforts to increase awareness among them, increase awareness for the wider movement surrounding issues regarding the knowledge engine. And of course, you know, those were key to many of the changes and many of the improvements that we have seen in the last 18 months.
Thank you, James.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yuri, and some of you might know me as Yurik. It's actually very hard to speak after James, whom I support 100%. And if you have to choose between me and James, I would actually choose James. That said, I've been with the movement since 2005. First, tried to contribute a little bit with the text, but then realized that my programming skills might be much more valuable. And so I started writing and running bots. I actually have over 2.5 million bot edits, as well as 30,000 plus, 35,000 plus manual edits. I do have a unique perspective among candidates. I've actually been both a volunteer, as well as I've actually been employed by the foundation as an engineer and later a team lead of interactive team. I was in the middle of the knowledge engine discussion, and I was working for a discovery team at the time. And I did object the search engine direction that WMF was taking, based on my community experience. I dream of Wikipedia that engages readers. And it's also fun. It has to be fun for both readers and writers. Actually, you know what? I'll just show some of the things I like to talk about on my screen, and it would be much easier to talk about it. So I hope you can see my screen, and I think you do. Okay, so I wrote a while ago this thing called I Dream of Content, where I outlined how I perceive Wikipedia and other projects to develop. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the main thing is that it has to engage the readers. It has to be fun. Otherwise, it gets boring. Only text is just, very few people can be determined enough to go through just the text without being able to play with content. We, after 15, 16 years since inception of Wikipedia, still do not have maps on every wiki enabled. The maps are there, but very few wikis can fully embed them. So you cannot have a map like this where you can drag and drop it, and you can look at the different information about the map. For example, like who is the governor of the state? And you can find that out, and you can click on it and see who the person is. But beyond that, we are forced to upload images, mostly to tell a story. One thing that I feel that we have had a lot of discussion about data verifiability, fake facts, other aspects. Well, Wikipedia cannot tell a story without being able to store proper data, like large amounts of data to tell a story. Like this is GDP data by state as a table, something you can already do on Commons. But that data has to be represented. Like, for example, this graph takes from that data and able to show you what the GDP of each state is. And you can view it in historically, and you can compare it, like how it developed in the past 6 years. Like North Dakota, for example, grew much faster than other states, possibly due to oil. Graphs have to be translatable. It has to very easily translate from one language to another. So you don't have to recreate the graph 500 times, once per language and once per wiki project. Because if you do something for Wikinews, you don't want to recreate it for Wikipedia or Wikivoyage. You have to do it once, as well as translation. Like, for example, this graph, I want to be able to view that same graph in Greek and not need to translate it. The graph has to be automatically translatable. I did a lot of demos for graphing and how it can be done. Like some of you might know page view API graphs that I did a while ago. There's a lot of little toys that you can do, but this has to go as a organized effort to improve the content and the fun factor of Wikipedia and other projects. Like another one, this is something that a volunteer from Russian Wikipedia and myself did together. This is still work in progress, an ability to view the night sky and view how the stars change. Weather data. You should be able to, if you're telling the story about global warming, for example, you should be able to tell how it changed. You should be able to view it in terms of changing for New York City or some other location. I would like to yield the floor at this point. Let's see, how do I stop the sharing? There we go. And to other candidates, and hopefully hear some questions as well. Thank you very much.
Yurik. Maria, you next.
Thank you. I'm Maria Sefidari. I've been a long-time Wikimedian. I've been editing for the last 11 years. I started out on English Wikipedia, and I then went to Spanish Wikipedia. I'm an administrator there. I've held a number of roles there. I focus not only on Wiki, but also Wiki. I believe very strongly that it's incredibly important to join with other people. I believe very strongly on collaboration in order to get things done, things like what we achieve with our projects every day. I have helped create a chapter, Wikimedia Spain. I have helped create a user group, Wikimujeres. My focus has always been about bringing all the voices that we are missing. It's true, I've had a particular focus both for LGBT and women. I created the LGBT Wiki project on Spanish Wikipedia, which was extremely successful. And as for women, I've participated in a variety of initiatives. The latest one is helping organize the second edition of Wiki Women Camp that will be happening in a couple of months. Aside from that, I am currently serving on the board of trustees. I am the vice chair. I joined the board arguably at its lowest moment of the crisis. Those were hard times. The board was in total disarray. The community was very worried and very disturbed by what was happening. And so the board had to change its dynamics, and we had to pull through. I've been part of that group that since then has hired a new executive director and has launched what I believe is the most ambitious movement strategy process for the next 15 years. We're trying something new. We're trying to be incredibly inclusive and bring all the voices that normally we wouldn't hear about. I'm running because I believe I can not only provide a different voice and a different experience to the board, but also because I want to see through this strategy process. I want to, now that we've dealt with the cases, I want to go further. I want to see exactly what we can do, all of us together, not only in terms of thinking about the future, but this is the time when we have hopefully started to reach all the communities that before we weren't able to reach. Now it's when they join the conversation. Now it's when we become a global movement. We get out of our little bubble of the Wikimedia ecosystem and we start talking with other movements and we start impacting the world. Because that's in the end what I believe all of us want, including all the other candidates, right? It's to have an impact on the world and to fulfill our mission, to make free knowledge accessible to every single human being in the planet. I believe I bring institutional memory. I believe I bring a ton of experience. I've proven myself I can work within the board. I can get things done. I can help the board be a group that works together, where every voice is heard, where we reach consensus, and then we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. How about you next?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Abad, a 20-year-old from Jordan and a first-year English literature student. I have started my first contributions on Wikipedia from quite a long time, actually. It was around 2006. I was still in elementary school, but I haven't initiated my actual account and started as a regular contributor until 2009, so I'm much more late than most people here, I guess. I also don't think I have never been heard of for most of the people here because my work is actually very focused on the Arabic Wikipedia and the Arabic-speaking region in general. I have been editing for quite a while. I mostly write long articles on Wikipedia. I have like over 1,000 articles, but I also do have a decent organizational experience. I have been involved in the Wikipedia education program since its launch in the Middle East in 2012. I have also been involved in Wikilove's Monuments for several years, and I have been a co-founder of a user group, as well as a vice director of a regional conference, Wiki Arabia, passed last year. However, I don't think that my experience can compare to most of the other candidates. I have actually thought a lot about it before running for the elections, but I have to say that my main motivation is that compared to my region and the low level of awareness of Wikipedia in general, I think that my contributions are relatively decent for the Arabic and generally Middle Eastern and Asian communities. And I have also been a little surprised that almost no people from underrepresented groups were running for elections this year. So that was a main part of my decision. I have to say that I also have plenty of ideas that I had like to speak up, but I'm not sure if that exactly verifies as a reason for running for elections. So I don't have much else to say, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you very much, Abad. We will now start with community questions, which will come through the YouTube channel and IRC, which we have in the background running. People who would like to share their questions, we will be welcoming them now. If you want some specific person to answer them, please don't do that, and bring on the questions. And since I prepared one question for myself, I'll start with it. Can you please describe the relationship you think should be between the community and WMF? We will start in the opposite order, so Abadi would be first for this question. Abad, can you hear us?
Oh yes, I can. Sorry, the microphone was muted. So can you repeat, please? I'm really sorry.
I would like you to share your thoughts about the relationship between the WMF and the community.
I have to say that I'm not one of the people who were most involved with the community issues relating to Wikimedia Foundation because I'm basically highly focused on my local community. But I have been following on a general level with the past controversial issues in the last few years, like the visual editor thing and the knowledge search engine. And I really believe that there were like many crises over the recent period, more than there had been ever before, which was very challenging, like for the foundation and for the board, particularly since it's made up of volunteers. But these problems had been really declining in the recent months. After the appointment of the last executive director, and the relations between the Wikimedia Foundation and the community seems to be improving a lot, which is good. I also think that the recent approach to the strategy process is really unique and is helping so much in bridging the relationships between the Wikimedia Foundation and the community. Because this strategy process has involved the wider movement in the discussion in a way that had never happened before. The basic idea of recruiting strategic coordinators and discussion coordinators to facilitate discussions in languages other than English was very successful at attracting people who would never been heard of under normal circumstances. So many underrepresented groups, like, for example, the Arabic community in my region, the Asian communities in East Asia, and even in Latin America and other places, had so many statements and so many comments to add to the strategy process, even though when the discussion is normally held on Meta in English language, they would almost never participate. I see this as a very positive step, especially that this strategy process will define the future of the movement for so long, much longer than any other strategic plan before. And I also think that the foundation is generally taking the right approach to things. However, there's also always a room for improvement. So I don't think it would be bad for some more communication channels to be opened. I'm mainly concerned that most ways to communicate with the foundation now are kind of limited to those experienced editors who invest so much of their time on MetaWiki and such places where normal users and normal writers or new users on our wiki projects would not exactly know their way around. So I would never find a normal contributor who has been on Wikipedia for only a few months or a year or two coming to Meta and participating in these community-wide scary discussions that are related to the foundation issues. So I think there should be more ways to access these people who do most of the actual work on Wikipedia and on other wiki projects, in order to hear their voices and their concerns, because I actually think they are so different than the concerns of the experienced editors who has been on wiki projects for 7 or 8 years or more, and to actually make up the majority of the people who participate in most of the sensitive discussions and maybe who speak up most of the complaints that we constantly hear. This is actually highly influenced by my work with many new Wikipedians in the education program and in my university, which I have noticed that always have many problems and worries that no one ever speaks up in the community out loud. And that's my main point.
Thank you very much, Abad. Maria, you're up next.
Thank you. I agree with Abad. I think that things have been improving markedly in the relationship between the communities and the WMF. I think something that has been done very well because we knew that that we couldn't reach a lot of people, right? Not everyone is subscribed to Wikimedia. Not everyone is following Wikipedia Weekly on Facebook. So we need to get out a little out of the bubble and reach those voices that we knew were not participating, but were active and so very active in their local communities. So one thing that happened with the strategy process that we've seen, for example, was getting community liaisons, getting people that worked and edited in those projects, and have them do the entire process and interact with the people of their local communities and have a back and forth. Because I think it's all fine and well to inform communities in their village farms that, you know, this is happening, like, for example, the elections, right? Giving the notices that the elections are happening and having them translated is already a big step. But there's room for improvement there. For example, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, the content translation tool stopped working, right? And most people didn't know what was happening. And that's an area that, for example, there could have been more proactive action, right? There could have been a message sent to the communities, to the different village farms, because most projects had no idea what was happening. So I think there is room for improvement there. But I think we are in the right direction. That the WMF definitely knows that it is important to reach all the different communities. And that's on Wiki. Of Wiki, I think we are having marked improvement in the relationship with the affiliates. I think there's, again, a lot of room for improvement. I think AFCOM, for example, the affiliations committee is very good at interacting, especially with the new affiliates, those that have a less formal relationship with the WMF because they don't ask for grants or they don't ask, they're not part of the education program or so on. So I think that's something that I would like to see WMF take a little bit more of a proactive interaction, especially with all the new user groups. But I think we are in the right path.
Thank you very much, Maria. You're up next.
Hi. I'll try to be very brief this time. Transparency. This is probably the biggest issue, the biggest aspect that community could benefit from WMF and the board doing. Community should always be highly aware of everything that's going on. We should not engage in any kind of secret grant dealings. In short, community should decide what is needed. WMF should implement what community decides is needed. And the board should coordinate this process. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Okay, next. That would be Doc James.
Great, thank you. So our movement has one amazing strength, and that is our communities. We need to engage and collaborate, and we need to collaborate as equals. That was one of the big issues with Super Protect. It imbalanced the relationship between the Wikimedia Foundation and the communities. And this is why, that is the reason why I pushed so hard to see Super Protect removed, and it was. Our new ED is great. We, however, should have hired her in November of 2015. With respect to transparency, for our movements to engage with the Wikimedia Foundation, we need a great deal of transparency by the Wikimedia Foundation. In October of 2015, when I was on the board of the Wikimedia Foundation, and I became aware of the Knight Foundation grant and the Knowledge Engine, I offered at that point in time to write an overview of what was going on from the board's perspective for the signpost. I think the signpost is a very critical part of our movement and provides important checks and balances. And it would be good to see, the board publishing statements, their positions, their thoughts in the signpost on a more regular basis. And if I'm elected, I would I've offered to take that on, or I've been negotiating that with the signpost. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much. Darius, your turn.
Building on what Maria and James said, I think it is essential that the community has its very special role satisfied I think the WMF is not an equal of the community. I think the WMF has a supporting role to the community. I think the community is basically the main fuel of, and the main competitive advantage point of what we do. So I think the relations should be, ideally, should be hand in hand. I had a conversation today. I think the WMF mistakes of the past was not communicating early and was not discussing with the community early enough, even with very sensible ideas like visual editor. I think lots of great ideas can be implemented, but they should be announced first, discussed with the community, and only then introduced into the deployment stage. So what I would like to see would be the WMF collaborating with the community hand in hand. But building on what Maria said, I also think it is very important to have a wider reach than just the English-speaking community. I think it is essential that we reach out to smaller communities, which we currently don't. I think the strategy building process is a very good starting point because we started reaching out to other communities. But as a board member in the future, if you elect me, I will make sure that we follow up with this trope. Thanks.
Thank you, Dariusz. Milos, you're up next.
I want to say that during the past couple of years, there could be seen quite, let's say, significant improvement in relation to the relation between Wikimedia Foundation and community. However, it is still on the lines which are not enough for representation of the for the real representation of the community. So for example, the strategy process, which is definitely the best we had till the present, is also involved just quite organized groups, chapters, thematic organizations, committees, so on and so on, and user groups, of course. Through user groups, we have definitely bigger representation of the community itself, but the community itself is on wikis, not offline, it is online. And in relation to that, let's say for 15 years, more than 15 years, mechanisms is making decisions. So mechanisms in the forms of on-wiki discussions, in the forms of particular, in the forms of voting for particular issues, have not been addressed. Have not been addressed by Wikimedia Foundation till now. There are possible methods how to solve that. However, the most to do that is definitely to create an assembly of the Wikimedia movement, through which most of them just editing online to express their opinion and their Wikimedian political will. That's it.
Thank you, Milos. Chris, you're the last for this round of questions, then we will press on to the next question from the community. Chris, the floor is yours. And you're unmuted and we can't hear you, so please unmute yourself.
over Superprotect, the Hypha letter, some of the other more high-profile problems between WMF and community last year. And I was thinking, actually, lots of these seem familiar because many of the dynamics of the relationship between WMF and chapters or communities are similar to the dynamics that you have between other non-profits that have a bunch of people in a building with a budget and even more people actually doing more for the impact of the organization as volunteers. So I wrote this essay. Please do read it if you haven't already. It's very good. Actually, I was asked to present this at a WMF staff session, and there's a video of that. So if you want another 90 minutes of YouTube Wikimedia to watch, I'll send you the link. Essentially, these are the kind of recommendations, and I will actually, if I have to, print this out and take it as a checklist to WMF board meetings to see whether we're confident that we're actually handling things the right way. I mean, communication is obviously vital. Equally, sometimes there isn't the time or space for communication on a particular topic. Some topics aren't that important. It's also about being as open to alternative solutions, alternative formulations, and then when you decide there needs to be a conversation to make sure that there's plenty of time and space for that to be happening. So that is the short version. Now, let's switch back to me. I think it's also important to think about which board members are going to be able to most effectively advocate on the board for a strong relationship with the community. Because in many ways, we're all saying some quite similar things here. And I think it's important that voters, community members, also consider who's going to be able to make that voice effective. It's quite easy to say, I'll be the voice of the community on the board, but I think you also need to think about who has the skills and experience to make that voice effective. And that's all I'll say for now.
Thank you very much, Chris. We will now pass on to the next question from the community. The question is, what types of resources, technical, social, financial, or training should the WMF support for community members that are not being supported now, especially Yuri?
I feel the most important thing that WMF and the board can do at this point is focus. I feel that we have kind of spread our attention to one too many topics in the last few years, and they are very important, each one of them. But the success of any organization, the success of any movement, any goal is in the ability to focus on the most important, or more importantly, the most bang for the buck, if you will. If we can spend the very limited resources that the community and just donations give us, we should address whatever efforts will give us the most results. One of the things that I feel, speaking as an engineer, of course, that hasn't been as much addressed as I would hope, is the ability for the community to more effectively contribute. And by that, I mean that at this point, the way we have we separated between the community and the development at WMF is that WMF does all the development, or most, 99% of the development, and the community does some of the little volunteer work, and most in the development space, and mostly the content work, all the content work, actually. I feel that if we spend a little more effort on just bringing in the volunteer development, that would help. This is not the only thing, clearly. We just need to figure out which areas would produce the biggest result. And for that, I actually want to ask the community to help with deciding this process. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Next for the question would be Maria.
Thank you. I think it's tempting to think that there's one solution that would fit every project and every different community. I think the reality is I would like WMF to listen to what the needs are, both online and offline. It's very possible that for a small project, they would love to have a bot that archives talk pages because they're doing that manually and they don't have anyone with the know-how or the knowledge to do that, and it would save them a lot of time. And perhaps offline, there's a lot of differences between the different affiliates. We have small affiliates, we have big affiliates, we have user groups, we have chapters. They do different work. I would really not like the WMF to tell everyone what they need or the resources they're going to give to them. I would like to have very clear channels of communication in which community members and affiliates can actually say, so this is what we need, because we live in a place where we have a very poor internet connection. It doesn't make any sense for us to do an editathon because it's a poor use of our time to get together when we know we don't have that good of a connection. So maybe what works best for us is this. And then the WMF can come in and provide the support and resources needed. Basically, I think it's a matter of communication. And then, yes, I would like to say the WMF support it, but not by saying, this is what you need. Thank you.
Matanya, are you with us?
Hello, Matanya.
I believe a bot would be next, so I can take over if Matanya is joining back.
But I think it's about time measurement as well, right?
Yeah, no, I'll ping him off on the side.
So shall I speak up?
Yeah, you can continue. You can keep going.
All right. So I think there are so many issues that one can argue that the community needs supporting, and like especially that the question is so general, like it involves technical, social, financial, and even training resources. However, I would like to take the approach that most of the experienced editors and contributors on the Wikimedia movement are already being supported pretty well. So if they have any needs, they can go back to affiliates or ask for funds or make grant requests. They have a lot of tools which they can speak up their concerns and ask for support of several sorts. But I had like to see or to believe that the majority of the support now needs to go to the editors that we really hear of. So mostly like the content tools and the translation tools, the interface of Wikimedia projects, these are stuff that we must focus on in the upcoming period, because it is actually becoming harder and harder for modern internet users who are only used to social media and websites with very fancy interfaces to enter Wikipedia and deal with the stuff inside it. I have formed this point of view by talking with dozens of university students in my university, which we were advocating Wikipedia at. And it was surprising how hard it is for so many new people to get into our websites. So we might think that we need very complicated technical tools and support that very long members of the community might ask for, but I had rather think that the support needs to go to places where we rarely think they need it. So I had like to focus on improving like technical tools which are orientated towards mostly inexperienced contributors, and that's my main point.
Thank you very much. We would now move on to the next person, which is Chris. You are muted, Chris. We can't hear you.
Financial support, I think we're kind of there. WMF has a very good grants program and it's continually developing, and there's a lot of sign that the grants team are investing a lot of time in improving it. Training, I think, is an area that WMF and the community collectively could do, the movement collectively could do a lot more. I used to run a training program for volunteer campaign managers for one of the UK's political parties. And that was a pretty big deal because being a campaign manager, if you get it wrong, actually, technically you can go to jail. And it struck me when I was on the board of Wikimedia UK that actually there was very little support for chapter board members. So, I mean, I helped set some up. I run 2 workshops. Darius spoke at some of them. People gave them quite good reviews. And there is far more that the movement could be doing to support volunteers, whether it's chapter board members, on-wiki functionaries, many other roles. Then technical development, there's still plenty of scope for WMF to make user experience better using technical tools. Yuri said we need to make Wikipedia editing fun. I completely agree with that. And there's plenty of scope for WMF to develop more power tools for power users and committed Wikipedians.
Thank you very much, Chris. Milos, it's your turn.
What I see from various parts of the movement, I mean, not just local here in Serbia, but any emerging groups which are starting to, or just having the idea to do something in reality, in relation to the reality offline, not in reality, online is also reality, is the burden which they have by making the projects, fulfilling all of the requirements for the project, and after that finalizing it into the again bureaucratic form, which is by the way, I completely understand the need for that, but the point is that the groups, individuals, and so on, are often not going into the offline projects or other types of engagement just because of that kind of burden which they have. So basically, Wikimedia Foundation should somewhat more proactive in that area, and to, how to say, support the ideas of the people from the community to go to, I mean, to read on Wiki who wants to do something, and then to approach them to tell them that it will, in relation to the bureaucracy which they are not able to fulfill, and but it's, how to say, it's not just about the, I don't know, established user groups, individuals or very loosely organized groups all over the movement. So if Wikimedia Foundation steps up and help the community in that way, that we will have, how to say, more content, Wikipedians and Wikimedians, but also much more ideas what to do and much more, how to say, offline results. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Milos.
That's it.
Darius, you're up next.
Well, I think the question of what resources should the WMF give to the communities is actually very simple. It's Milos, I'm muting you because there was back noise. So essentially, we need to ask the communities what they want. The WMF should actually serve the communities in asking them what kind of tools they need. However, I think we do have a couple of deficiencies. For example, some communities, like large communities, have tools that the smaller communities don't have. The WMF could very easily invest a little bit in developing translations and transplants between the communities. Some tools that work on NWiki are not available on other wikis, and I use them on NWiki and I miss them elsewhere. So this is one thing. About the social things that the WMF could do for the communities, I think, for example, we should develop markets of ideas so that the communities can learn from each other. Because we have wonderful, really wonderful ideas, and I've seen this as the FDC chair for 3 years, really wonderful ideas in chapters and affiliates, and yet many of those are really forgotten and people do not know that they are even happening. So WMF should serve as a hub of ideas and a facilitator of dissemination. Also, I think the WMF has a very important role in distinguishing between large organizations like Wikimedia Deutschland and a very small affiliates. And I think that both need resources, both need fostering. And I think the WMF's role is to wisely distinguish between what a large organization can do and what a small chapter can't. So I think it is the WMF role to introduce reasonable differentiation in resource allocation and also in reporting requirements. These are the three that come from the top of my head.
Thank you very much, Darius. Last one for this question would be Doc James.
Great, thank you. So, what types of resources should the Wikimedia Foundation primarily support? You know, I think right now the Wikimedia Foundation does a pretty decent job supporting social aspects within our movement. We have Wikimania. They fund other get-togethers. They also do quite well with with respect to the financial aspects through the FDC, et cetera. With respect to training, my opinion is many of the other movement partners are better positioned. If we want to do outreach to specific topic area NGOs, this is better done by other organizations other than the Wikimedia Foundation. Where the Wikimedia Foundation shines, however, is in providing technical support for our communities. The community tech team has been a huge step forward over the last couple of years. It has been a very effective group within the Wikimedia Foundation, and I'd love to see it grow further. They did an amazing community survey to determine what direction they should go. That team has been very responsive to our wider movement's input. And some of the things, that have been that were asked for improvement have been, improving cross-language templates, improving cross-language gadgets, improving cross-language tools. Our communities want these things. We just need to make sure that we're funding the tech resources to build what the community is requesting. And I'll end there.
Thank you very much, James. The next question that came from the community would be, sorry for the delay. It's a question from Faris that Maria will take. What types of WMF spending are most effective and what types are not? Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you. it would be good to see the context of the question, because I am aware that there are very varied opinions about the kinds of spending. I am going to assume that it's the question is about spending as it relates to the community, because of what I've seen. But I'm going to go with that, okay? So what the WMF has been doing in the last few years is basically grants, FDC, APG, etc. We do have certain caps. For example, with the FDC, there's a $6 million US dollar cap that has never quite been reached. I see that the question means what is more effective and what is not, which takes us to the question of impact, right? By per buck, which I believe was Yuri or Peter who mentioned it. I don't think that we have been inefficient with how we've been demanding transparency and accountability from either community members or affiliates in terms of how the money from the movement has been spent and how it has been given, so it could be used by community members, by affiliates to carry on initiatives both off wiki and on wiki. I know there's a line of thought that carries the idea that anything that is done off wiki has little to no value. I disagree. I think it's another way to create community. That's how we attract people and they come to the projects. It's less tangible. I like this shift from the WMF from what is called hard metrics to also take into account qualitative aspects. And without knowing a little bit more about the details of the question, honestly, I think you would have to go case by case basis, seeing all the requests. But overall, I think WMF is doing a good job, and I think community members and affiliates do a very good job with their initiatives, and how public and how transparent everything is on Meta, where everyone can actually see both the requests and the initiatives and the reports and comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria. The next to take this question would be Abad.
So I think that spending is generally has been going well for the past few years, with most of the grants that are being granted for the individuals and for the affiliates. But I had guessed that the current strategy process will reveal much of what the community thinks about the focuses that we need to have in the upcoming few years, and hence where we should be mostly spending our money. I had personally believed, if the question is personal, that the main focus must be regarding the technical side of the Wikimedia websites, as well as supporting the emerging communities. I had really think that there are some problems in spending on like people in small communities, because sometimes large grants are ineffective and will produce little results for these communities. But if some effort was put into offering them a fast and flexible grant system, which they can apply to in their own language without having to go on Meta and write in English, that kind of little support might make it much easier for them to ask for little grants that might make a very big difference for them, a difference that might be much more effective than grants that goes for large conferences in underrepresented areas, for example, in some countries. I also think that technical tools need a lot of improvement, and unfortunately, they need a very big amount of resources in order to be improved, especially of few issues that I have addressed when I was answering the previous question regarding the interface and the easiness of contributing to Wikipedia websites for new users. I also think that in relation to this, investing a little bit in research might be crucial in order to know what is the kind of problems we are facing right now and how do we want to approach them. And that's all.
Thank you very much, Abad. The next to take this question will be Chris.
Hello again. Am I on okay?
Yes, you are.
Good stuff. Yeah, I don't have too much to add on the specifics of this question than some other people who've already answered it. It's kind of an interesting question to ask a board member, because really the role of a board member here is to ask exactly this question to the executive director, and then see what their answer is, and then try and take it apart, and then see really how robust it is. One other thought while I'm here, I'm gonna screen share again. If I can find the right button, you can see how good I am with technology. One of the issues we have as a movement is that we don't have a particularly good understanding of what our impact is. I mean, we know there's loads of cool stuff, and it's amazing, and it's amazing in many different ways. We don't particularly have a good understanding of what those different ways are. I mean, there's the amount of articles, the amount of content, there's the reach of the of how many people we're getting to. There's also the quality of what we're saying and the diversity of the content we have. So this is another essay of mine on Meta, which I really recommend you read, because it's quite good, that goes into a bit of detail about my thought process on this. Essentially, I'd like to see the WMF come up with some kind of more balanced scorecard of what it's actually measuring, because currently we have the WMF looks at its page views and its readers and its downtime, but it has a much less sophisticated understanding of what it's measuring and why than some of the larger affiliates do.
Thank you very much, Chris. We'll skip Milish because he ran out of time, and skip directly to Dariush. Sorry about that, Milish.
So, first of all, we do have sort of balanced scorecard reporting for the board, but it's a detail. Regarding of what kind of spending is too much, what is too little. Some people say, for example, that Wikimedia is money wasted. I don't share this view. I think that investing in community motivation is important. I think that this money comes back to us twice-fold. Basically, if we think about community fostering, this is essentially
Darius seems to have blocked.
Yes. Okay, I apologize for that to Dariush. He will join us again in a few seconds, I hope. And we would hop on quickly to James to take on this question.
Perfect, thanks. So with respect to what type of spending by the Wikimedia Foundation is most effective, well, first of all, the Wikimedia Foundation needs to keep the lights on, of course. We need to keep the server farms going. We need to pay for the bandwidth. That is the bare essentials and always must be. We should also work on making Wikipedia faster, not just faster for those in the developed world, but also faster for those in the developing world. And A third thing is the Wikimedia Foundation needs to improve the reach of Wikipedia. Not everybody can access Wikipedia online. You know, take a look at the issues that are happening in Turkey right now. We need to make Wikipedia work better offline. You know, there's still a huge portion of the world who do not have a reliable access to the internet. I was in the Philippines a little while ago. I was happy to pay whatever it cost for internet, and no matter how much I was willing to pay, it only worked for about an hour a day. So offline is really key. I've been doing work with the Wikimedia Foundation on developing offline capability for the Android app. I'm also working with Wikimedia Switzerland to develop offline potential as well. But you know, the big thing that the Wikimedia Foundation itself should be spending money on, outside of course providing grants to our many movement partners, is on working to develop tech collaboratively between community and staff. This is the most effective way that I've seen for developing tech. So perfect. I'll stop there and hand it on to whoever's next. Darius looks like he's back.
Thank you very much, James. Darius, if you are with us, I would love to hear the continuing of what you started to say. And if not, we can always stare at the black screen. That's very pretty as well. Give you another second, and if not, we'll move on to Yuri. Oh, and here he is. Darius, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can I come back to the answer?
Sure.
I think there's a lot of things that we are doing good. I think Wikimedia spending, for example, is not a huge problem. I think some people believe it is. I think of our communities is important, and it comes back as a lower burnout later. However, I also think there's a number of things we should do to be frugal. I think we need to keep certain cappings on spending. For example, no more than 20% of the budget growth for large organizations unless extraordinary circumstances occur. I think it should apply to the WMF as well. Also, I think that we should initiate a movement-wide initiative to try to look for savings. For example, we could just ask the WMF staff where we can save the money, and I think many of WMF staff could help us. I know for a fact that, for example, that we could possibly save some money by advanced travel bookings. If we know Wikimania is happening somewhere, exact dates, we should make travel arrangements fast and early, and we could save there. But there are many other examples that I'm sure our staff and affiliates can come up with. They just need to be encouraged to look for them.
Okay, thank you, Darius. I will tackle you directly by the next question. The next question being, what do you think the role of the board is, and what should it be? By Phoebe Iris.
Well, I think
Please.
I've been on a number of boards before, so I think I have an intuitive understanding of how it works elsewhere. But I think in our movement, the role of the board is much bigger. I think it's not only overseeing the ED, it's not only reacting with when problems occur, problems with HR, with leadership, with strategy, but it's also providing good communication channel for the staff, for the affiliates, and for the community. I think it is important that the board has certain additional oversight privileges and oversight responsibilities than a regular supervisory board would. I believe that the board's role is mainly to listen, to advise, and intervene when the time's needed. So I believe that for good times, we don't really need a board that will be acting all the time. But when things happen, when something bad happens, I think we need a board that will be able to act quickly and act decisively.
Thank you, Darius. I owe an apology to Yuri for skipping it for the previous question. Yuri, I'm sorry, the board is all yours now.
Why do I get extra time for this? I would like to support what a number of other candidates have said. We do need to be frugal as far as the budget goes. We also need to address the simplicity of editing and ability to contribute. The very important thing, we do not have 500 Wikipedias or wikis. We have one wiki with multiple projects and multiple languages, and we should treat it as such. and we should orient our goals towards uniting the community efforts so that community efforts are not duplicated in any way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yuri. Let's go back to the question that was presented to Dariush, with now James taking it. If you need me, I can also. We can't hear you. Just a moment, please. Now we can.
Perfect. There we go. So, the most important job of the board is to hire an excellent ED, provide guidance to an ED who is struggling, and remove an ED who is not a good fit for the movement. Further activities beyond that, we are a very fascinating movement. The board needs to sort of liaison between the many different communities we have and the Wikimedia Foundation. The board needs to sort of act as a bit of a check and balance on both sides of that equation to help make sure that the relationship between the different parts of our movement is working well. So that's all I have to say on that question.
Thank you very much, James. The next one to take this question would be Yuri.
Just as I said before, I think the board's role is...
Position.
Wait, we'll drop.
I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Yuri. I was saying that I believe the WMF's, the board role is to coordinate the interaction between community and WMF, and that community should decide what's needed, and the board should guide the WMF into implementing that.
Okay, that was short and precise. The next one to take this is Maria with 35 seconds on the clock. Maria, please do.
Thank you. So I think the role of the board is no mystery. I mean, we have to hire and supervise the executive director. We have to provide direction for the organization. The board has a strategic function in providing what the goals of the organization are going to be, which are then determined in combination with the ED. We also establish a policy-based governance system, right? It is the responsibility of the board to develop a governance system for how it's going to work and how the organization is going to work. Obviously, there is a fiduciary duty to protect the organization, to protect WMF and its assets. What board members have to do is keep informed, make an effort to know what's happening on the organization, monitor and a control function in the sense of, the board is in charge of the auditing process. The board hires the auditors. It's in charge of making sure, for example, that the audit is done in a timely manner each year. It's not a mystery at all what the role of a successful board is. You need a board that does the job, that does the hard work, that keeps informed and doesn't lose track of the big picture, and then can catch any problems and fix those in a timely manner before crises explode, and then provide a strategic direction. It's very, very simple. And those are my 35 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria. So we'll go up next to Abad for this question. He also has very few seconds left. Abad, the floor is yours.
All right. The board is the bridge between the community and the foundation, and it's crucial because it's basically a representative of the community's opinion and should behave based on this regard. So it might be the most crucial task for the board is to be able to communicate with the community properly and convey its wishes and its complaints and its general point of view to the foundation. And this role is very important, because if the board can't communicate properly with the community, then it is not going to be able to represent what our movement actually thinks, and that is a very main challenge.
Thank you very much, Abad. The next one for this question would be Chris. If he would unmute himself, it would be nice.
So
Yes.
yeah, thanks for this question. Basically, the goal of the board is to make sure that the WMF is doing everything it possibly can to make sure that as a movement we're achieving our goals and fulfilling our mission. It's important to remember that it's sometimes issues between the board or the staff and the community are expressed as which is more important, the WMF or the community. Well, actually, the WMF doesn't have any purpose except to fulfill our mission. What people are actually talking about in those circumstances is differences of opinion, differences of priorities about the WMF ED thinks we should do it that way, and some community members think we should do it a different way. So part of the real value that I think that the community selected trustees on the board can add is to challenge and shape the dialogue among with the ED and among the WMF's senior staff to make sure that they're keeping the relationship with the community at the forefront of their minds, and make sure that whenever something happens, particularly whenever something goes wrong, that they are learning from what's happening and thinking about how the WMF can improve in future. I've got a fair bit of experience of this. I was involved in recruiting 3 EDs for Wikimedia UK, 2 permanent, 1 interim. And in this area, like many other areas of the WMF's governance, I really think I am a strong candidate because I don't really know the principles of doing this. I've seen problems happen in real life, and I've seen boards work to resolve them. And as a result, I have the confidence and credibility to make sure the WMF board tackles things in the right way in future.
Thank you very much, Chris. The next one to take this question will be Darius, who already took it, if I'm not mistaken. And I think Dr. James has dropped. So the next one would be Yuri, which has like half a minute to take this question. So Yuri, yes.
But I already answered the previous question.
Have you answered this question? It will be interesting. Oh yeah, you were very brief. I'm sorry. Great. So now we have only a few minutes left, like 5 minutes left. So we can do something very quick and nice. Each and every one of you is going to get 1 question and answer it in 30 seconds. And I will be timing you. Are you ready? The question being, drum roll, please. Why should just someone care to vote in this election? This is the question. Why should someone care to vote in this election? It would start from Chris and end by Abad by order. Each and every candidate is equally expected to answer in 30 seconds. Please do.
Okay, so I start?
Yeah, please, 30 seconds.
So, actually, 7 years ago, I would have asked exactly the same question. I was just thinking, what's the Wikimedia Foundation got to do with my goals about how to write good articles on battleships on the English Wikipedia? Actually, the WMF has a huge amount it can offer, and it's really important that we have board members with really strong experience of the community and also really strong experience of affecting positive change on boards, which is exactly what I have, which is why I'm standing, so please vote for me.
Thank you. Next one will be Milos. If he's still with us. Are you, Milos?
Yes. Yes.
Please, I will be cutting you short.
Just a moment. Why anybody should vote? I mean, it is Wikimedia Foundation elections, I mean, for the board. The most important internet elections that exist. Because
thank you, Milo.
Yeah, okay.
I appreciate that. Dariusz, 30 seconds for you.
You should vote because it can make a difference. I think if we have board members who are able to stand up, are able to give a strategic direction to the ED and the foundation, this can really make wonders. And we are in a really decisive moment in our movement. New technologies, the augmented reality, the virtual reality, all competitions that are coming in, bot edits, artificial intelligence, all this means that we are in a very strict moment, and we need to really choose people who are able, have expertise, and can do what they need to do on the board.
Thank you, Dariusz. James is not with us, so we skip directly to Yuri.
Dariusz said it very well, actually. As someone in the community once said, this is the most important election on the internet. No matter how funny that may sound. And judging by the numbers published by WMF so far, it is already attracting one of the most number of votes ever, more than previous years. It is important because we are the ones who will represent you.
Thank you very much. Maria.
Thank you. Why should you vote? I think an extension of this would be, why should I engage with the wider movement, right? Why should be interested about what's happening away from my own project? Look, it matters. It matters. We need your voice. We need your participation. We need you to engage. If you do not participate, we have no idea of your experience. We have no idea of your background. If you do not engage, your voice is lost. Your vote is lost. And then we are missing something important. So participate.
Thank you, Maria. Abad, it's your turn.
It's actually hard to answer this in 30 seconds, but I believe it's interesting how large our movement is, and these elections are the way to reflect Wikimedia's influence on the world and to choose the representatives that are going to shape the future of this movement as large as it is. So I believe that it really matters for every individual to leave his mark on this future of our movement.
Thank you very much, Abad. Let's go back to James for the last to respond, in case he's with us.
Okay, so the question is, why should you vote? And my opinion is our democratic processes are important. Voting is one of the ways you uphold these democratic processes. This is a way to support a candidate who you believe supports the direction you wish to see the Wikimedia Foundation go in. So yeah, get out and vote.
Thank you very much. And with this, we will wrap up. I will thank each and every one of you for showing up tonight with very short notice and being so delightful and into us. I hope each and every one of you enjoys the process and the election, and to whatever wins, it's our delight and our gratitude that we have each and every one of you standing up for this election and being part of our movement. Thank you, and have a good night, day, or whatever it's time zone for you. See ya.
See you. Bye. And thank you.
Bye.